Hello, I'm Andrew, and this is the third video in the series looking at transcribing the 1841 census for the Sussex Online Parish Clerks. This video will follow the complete transcription process from start to finish of South Bersted District 5, with the aim to show you the process and method of entering census data in the correct format and notation required into the spreadsheet. I will assume that you already know about the 1841 census and, in particular, the method in which the enumerators forms were to have been filled in, along with the problems and errors which you will encounter. I will also assume that you know how to use spreadsheets, as I will not be explaining how I carry out tasks in the video. If you need to learn about either of these, then I have a couple of videos on these subjects. Links should be on the screen and in the video description. Final piece of advice before I begin: this is not a race, so take your time. It's better you take a month to complete 1,000 entries and have them all correct than do it in a week but littered with mistakes. As you can see, I already have the spreadsheet template and the census PDF file for South Bersted already open. The first task is to save the template as a new file name. It is a good practice if you save files using at least the parish name and the district number. It wouldn't be a bad idea if you save the files in the following format. First of all, we start off with the year, then the piece number, followed by the parish name, and finally the district number. If you find that you cannot read the enumerator's handwriting, just ask for another district to do, as there's no point in struggling through something you're not going to enjoy doing. The template is almost identical to the enumeration form. The only difference is we have the first name last and the last name first, and there's an extra schedule column. First job is to enter in the folio and page and row numbers. As this is the first entry, we are obviously starting with a new inhabited building. So we begin by entering in the place name. But sometimes only a single name is entered at the top of the column, usually when it's a village. When it comes to place names, just use a bit of common sense, because if a building is called the vicarage and it appears in the middle of a blank column, then obviously it will just be a single building that is called the vicarage. Another 20 new buildings after this will not be the vicarage. So let's enter in the name. There are no uninhabited buildings to enter, so we just jump to the inhabited buildings, which is 1. And finally we enter 1 into the schedule. These columns will only contain the number 1. You'll also place a 1 in this schedule break column to indicate a split between the groups living in the same building, such as family from servants. On the census sheet, these are indicated by the single diagonal stroke. If there is a logical break but no mark, then feel free to enter a break for this. Again, the obvious is a family with servants. To recap, a new inhabited building will always be accompanied by a place name, with 1 in the inhabited column and 1 in the schedule column. If there are any uninhabited buildings listed within the rows for this occupied building, then add them all up and enter them into the uninhabited column here. Right, so now we can move on to the names. After names, I like to enter the ages in reverse. The reason for this is that if I finish entering the block of ages and there's a gap or I run into the previous block of data, then I know that there is a problem somewhere. Also, I'll do a quick check of the gender as I run up the list. Here we have an age written in months. For non-year ages, we enter the year number first, followed by a space, and then a lowercase letter representing the months, days or weeks. So this is month, so we have lowercase m. When it comes to the occupations, I prefer to write the abbreviations out in full. However, if you want to enter them as they appear on the enumeration sheet, then that is entirely up to you. Born in the county column requires either a capital Y or a capital N. Alternatively, you leave it blank if the person was born outside of England. In that case, either a capital I, S or F is entered into this column here. If you are using this advanced template, then you only need to record the no's in this column, as this column here provides an autofill facility which you can then just copy over to this column at the end. So here we see a major error made by the enumerator. Despite the instructions specifically stating that no row must be left blank, he has done exactly that by placing an unoccupied building on its own row. To maintain the integrity of our spreadsheet data to correspond with the data on the form, in that Edward must still be on row 12, we must now delete row 11 on our spreadsheet. Like so. Having this row missing may pose a few problems. People might think that the entry is actually missing, or that the database has been corrupted. Therefore, we need to enter in a note to explain that this row is actually missing. So in our notes we enter we can copy, and now we can continue with our data entry. Now, as we had an unoccupied building recorded here, if this had been entered in properly, this would have appeared within the rows for the vicarage house listed here. So therefore we need to enter a 1 in the uninhabited buildings column, like so. I was not entirely sure how to decipher this name. By being a clergyman, I simply refer to my online book collection and the 1841 clergy list, where he is actually listed here in South Bersted there, so we know that that is Edel. And here we have our first household break indicated by the diagonal line. So we enter this as a 1 in the schedule column on the lower of the rows which this straddles, which is this row here. This is another name which I am uncertain of, but I will not waste any time dwelling on this. Instead, being early on in the form, I will leave it blank. By the time I get to the end, I should be more familiar with the enumerator's handwriting, and may be able to decipher it correctly. One problem with leaving names blank is that it's easy to forget about them and miss the gap when sending completed sheet back for inclusion into the database. However, with my template, that will no longer be a problem, as blank entries will actually be flagged up in the name check column here. If come to the end I still haven't got a clue what this says, I will just have to record this as best as I can, and if I am uncertain of any letters, enter those as a question mark. Or if you're uncertain of a whole name, then you can just enter the whole name as just a question mark. You will also come across missing entries or totally illegible entries, and they will also be recorded as a question mark. So here I've counted a name which I could easily just then assume that it's a spelling mistake from the previous name up here, where it is missing the L. It is tempting to enter this as EEDLE, but of course, what if I was wrong? So I will resist the urge to correct it. So you must also resist the urge to correct a spelling mistake, as it may be correct all along. Keeping the originality of people's names as the enumerator wrote them down is vital. Remember that this was written over 170 years ago. It is possible that you could be looking at the very last recording of a surname spelt that way. which is extremely important and valuable to a genealogist. If you think the name is wrong, then use the note column to register your concerns. And indeed, this surname is actually in use today. And finally, here we have another row that is blank. So again, we'll just make a note of that. Here we have the name Thos. This raises the issue of abbreviations. Thos is sometimes an abbreviation for Thomas. However, the way Thos is written here has none of the characteristics of an abbreviation, such as an raised S or the other punctuation associated with abbreviations. Therefore, I have to treat this as an actual name, and indeed the Thos is a name on its own right, so we have to assume that this is actually a name and not an abbreviation, and must enter it as Thos. And that is the final entry for South Bersted. So all I need to do is just delete the extra rows. And save. Go back up to the first row and we move over to our error checking. Highlight P2 to V2. And then we just copy that all the way down to the bottom of our spreadsheet. Boink. Okay, for this it might be easy if you put it onto a fuller page. And we can just actually scroll through that slowly and see if there's any mistakes anywhere. Ah, there's a name missing. Oh, what's this? Missing schedule or storage of data, so we need to investigate that one. Page 6, row 1. So if we come back to our thing, just come back to page 6. Yeah, that is correct. That's a new inhabited building. And obviously here I've left out the inhabited and schedule numbers. So I'll enter 1 in there and 1 in there to put that right. And when I hit that enter, that should disappear. Hey, there we go. I have actually deliberately made a few errors just to show you the error messages that come up on here. So if we scroll down, and there we go, there's a few there. So we've got, first of all, we've got a double entry for the birth location, and there we have 2 ends in the column. So if I just take that one out there, that clears the error. We've got name missing at the top here. So we've got the name missing on this row, which is... Ah, yes, it's our old friend Alexander again. This was the first one that we were looking at. And this name actually reads OESS. So we can enter that name in here. OESS. And that clears that check. And I've got a double entry for the age, and so we just need to delete that one there. Yep, delete that one there. And then we can come across, and then we're missing schedule or stray data. So if we look across, yeah, that's... and I know that's wrong because that's one I put in myself. Delete. And that's cleared all those errors. So now we can just carry scrolling down through my work. And here we have another missing name. Ah, yes, it's the AAs, it's the N. And I have determined that that is actually how the enumerator writes his double N's. So I can remove that, change that to Fanny, and then we can look at this Southerton and Southerton. And yes, that was the other double N there. You see, that looks like an AM, but it is actually a double N. That's how he writes his double N's. So we can write in an. Okay, so we've got to the bottom of the check without any more errors. So now I'll show you what to do with born in the county. As you can see, it's already auto-filled in with all the yeses and nos as I scroll through. Select the column P, and we go copy, select column M, and we paste the values only. So in Libra it's paste special, and we just want the numbers and text. We can take all that out, and we just want numbers and text in there. And that's done. And the final job is to save this as a CSV file. So we select A to O and do a copy. Okay, so it might be easier just to create a new workbook. So, and now we just do a right click and paste values only. So just do a paste special again, click OK. So now just save this as a CSV file. So it's File, Save As, and the South Bersted 5. Take out the name, and we go text CSV format. There we go, and save. And that's job done. Oh yes, use text CSV format. Okay, and job done. Close. Don't forget to save this sheet as well. File, save. So that concludes the entry for South Bersted 5. Thank you for watching.